Well, I have to apologise for missing a week, everyone. It's my fault, time zones and all. But I am back. And I think it was only right that Sharoy and I got together for a good chat about Arsenal. We've played some football, finally. No more Southgate ball. We didn't even play that brilliantly, and I enjoyed it far more than England. It was a relief. And it's so good to be back here with your man, Sharoy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I'm grateful that you want to spend time speaking to lay people like me and even having me on the podcast. I mean, James says it was his fault that this didn't go ahead last week. I mean, who can blame him? He was sat there asking Arteta questions in press conferences and having conversations with Josh Kroenke and being at the door of the same club as Jude Bellingham and Mbappe not quite getting in. I mean, I completely forgive you for not wanting to sit there on a stream with me for 45 minutes, mate. You carry on.
Well, I wasn't hanging out with these people for much longer than 10 minutes on an afternoon. But, man, I wish we could have done that podcast, man, because I would have forgotten half the stories. But let me just say right now, I was not paying the money that Cecil and Curtis paid to go get a picture with Jude Bellingham. But fair play to them.
But from what people are saying online in these vlogs and from what Robbie was saying, it wasn't that much. It could have been worse.
It wasn't like people are thinking thousands. It didn't touch that. It was just more than I was willing to pay.
Yeah, fair enough.
I stood outside. I'd been drinking for about 6, 7, 8 hours. And they were sort of saying like, Mbappe's in there and Jude's in there. And then, should we get in? And to be fair, Curtis and Cecil originally told me a price that was even more than they went in for. Okay. So I was just like, I'm good. You have fun. And I left and I just thought, they're getting that picture, But if anyone can do it, it's those guys.
Your day sounds like if you were in London, that would have been kebab shop home. That's where. Yeah.
That's exactly the kind of day. Yeah. That's exactly. It was basically chicken doner with a bit of garlic sauce, please. Off I go. Watch a little bit of, I don't know, Friends, Big Bang Theory, fall asleep, wake up, regretting the end of the night.
Do you want to hear my story whilst you're away?
Yes, please.
I've got one little story anyway.
Oh, go on.
I had a really, really long day at work. And I know retail therapy isn't the healthiest, but I just said, you know what? I'm going to go buy the new Arsenal kit. I don't care. I'm just going to go do it.
I can see it.
I go to Adidas, Oxford Street. And I think Monday after work, it's not going to be busy. I always get my name and number printed on the back. Yeah. So I get there, and if you've been to the Adidas store, you write your name, your number down on a little ticket, and they tell you to come back. And I go, so when should I come back? And the guy goes, probably tomorrow, bro. And I just went, what? I'm not coming back here tomorrow, man. I've just come to buy the kit. Big up Kevin from Adidas flagship, Oxford Street. He turns around and goes, hold on, let me see that piece of paper. He goes, Sharoy, don't worry, bro, I got you. Come back in 20 minutes. I was like,
no way.
I was like, thank you so much. And I told him, I said, listen, catch us on the Goonerverse. I'm going to give you a shout out. So big up Kevin from the flagship store. So happy.
See the perks of having a podcast.
Oh, man. Yeah. As in, I told my girlfriend, and she went, that's disgusting nepotism. There's a child that probably had to wait longer for their kit. And I said, I don't care. I don't care. Let me have the small benefits that I get.
Yeah, start a podcast, child, then we can talk. Oh, fair play to you. So that's the top. Nice. I have to say, watching the players in it, it's a lot nicer. It's a very nice shirt. It's a lot nicer as a kit. Certainly the away kit, I feel that way. Seeing it as like a whole kit, I was like, oh yeah, they look good in this.
Yeah, I got that one as well.
Good work.
I took the piss that Monday. I really did.
Hey, listen, sometimes you got to look after yourself. Good on you. Good on you, man. Well, they actually released the third kit I think it's next week. So we'll definitely review that on the channel or podcast in some capacity. But yeah, so we've got lots to catch up on.
A lot.
2 weeks worth, over 2 weeks worth, because we actually recorded the podcast with Robbie and Cecil about 2.5 weeks ago, because we had to record it so early so that it was ready in time. Big up Max, got it all ready before we went away. I think it came out when I was on a plane, so it wasn't until I landed that I actually saw other people enjoying it. I said to Max, if people are hating it or we've misspoken, we're getting cancelled, you have permission to delete the video.
I didn't know you told him that. I didn't know you told him that.
I was like, my friend, the channel is under your control now. But no, big up everyone. And may I say, you're all showing tremendous support to the channel. We really appreciate it. Like 30,000 views on almost every single one. Well, pretty much. I think only 28,000 in one of the, like, thank you to everyone who's watching. We really appreciate it. I certainly didn't expect it, Troy.
It is so mad. And I've always said that one of the most wonderful things about this is integrating with the community and just seeing the comments. And I'm not just talking about the comments that are complimentary about the show or the people that are on the show. I'm talking about engaging in the debate, right?
Yeah.
And making me look at things in a way that I hadn't necessarily looked at them before, all in the space of a 2 or 3 line comment. It's incredible, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. And I have just remembered a comment from, I think, that last podcast where someone very kindly put, I love this podcast because they go straight into it. There's no waffle, no messing about. And now we're 5 minutes, 50 seconds in, and all we've done is waffle about the Adidas store, meeting a bunch of celebrities, buying Arsenal shirts.
Chicken doner.
And chicken doner and thanking everyone. But you know what? Sometimes you need a little bit of that fluff. But look, I think when we've done the previous podcast with 4 of us, we've had quite a few topics we wanted to hit. This is like a little bit of an overview, and I sort of did that in an hour live show on the Goonerverse. But I really kind of want to get your thoughts on a few things, and I normally title the podcast after. Like I watch it back and I go, what were the main things that came through, and then I'll title this. But I really want to angle the discussion towards this title of this podcast, which is how to complete Arsenal squad. Because one big takeaway I had from the preseason games out in the States is that this squad isn't that far away. When you look at the options and the numbers, the players that are emerging, where we seem to be this Marino deal, I don't think we're very far from having that squad that does not only pick up those extra 2-3 points it might take to beat City, but can compete across all other competitions, can go far in the Champions League, can maybe rack up even more points. And maybe I'm a little bit delusional, but I genuinely felt that when I looked at the options we had available. As we explore and unpack that sentence there, what was your kind of general thoughts on preseason tour in general first? The 3 games, the win, the draw, the defeat, obviously a couple penalty shootouts in there, the players we saw, and I know we're going to lead on to the youngsters, but what was kind of what were your main takeaways, Shiroi?
Thing is, man, I don't really look at preseason to sort of inspire confidence in what I think the team is going to do when it comes to winning trophies. But one thing I was really curious about, maybe because we'd spoken about the academy, is let me see what these youngsters are really about. Let me see who goes. Let me see who plays. And one thing, I mean, it's not applicable just to one player. This is something that was universal. Every single one of them that I saw, apart from maybe Rekic, sadly, but I'll park him for a minute.
Yeah.
Every single one of them had that Arteta Arsenal identity. That level of Arteta DNA, where you could see that they were absolutely not going to lose out on a duel. You could see that they might make a mistake, but they weren't afraid to make another mistake, in the same way that some first teamers in the past have been, where they make a mistake and they're so afraid that there's going to be a massive pile-on that they will refuse to be brave in the next situation. Right? I immediately think of Heaven in that game. I mean, the Højlund goal against United. Look, if you're looking at that as an isolated bit of play, that looks quite bad as a defender, especially when you're young. That can brutalize your confidence, especially because Højlund is a rough and tumble kind of player. Mm-hmm. But I think after that, Heaven has a fantastic game.
Yeah,
and there were so many of those sort of little moments that gave me a real sense of hope, pride, and belief as to those youngsters. But having said all of that, when you're talking about elevation to the extent that you're trying to catch one of the greatest teams that the Premier League's ever seen, you can't be relying upon those youngsters, but it's great to know that they're there, right? Maybe for the other competitions, But the other thing that I did want to see that I didn't get to see was how we were going to play Calafiori. I would have liked to have understood a bit more about that on this tour. I would have liked for him to maybe be a part of the squad a bit earlier, but sometimes these things can't happen. And that's why we'll get onto it, but that's why I'm really, really going to be focusing on Leverkusen and the Emirates Cup.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Pretty much every youngster stood out. I thought they were the story of the tour. I've used that line about 5 times on this channel already, but I want to...
They absolutely were.
Yeah, they were. I thought Josh Nichols, who was given a tough time by Semenyo in that first game, against Man United and Jadon Sancho, and then against Liverpool, looked tremendous. He won an early duel, you're right, very Arteta, very like, these are my principles. There was one moment against Man United where he had his back to play. There was a forward pressing him. He could have gone back to keeper, but he sort of just dropped a shoulder, drove inside and played a forward pass. And I was like, Arteta's going to be sitting there clapping and loving that. I thought Lewis Skelly was doing the Zinchenko thing better than Zinchenko's done it recently. I thought Nwaneri, he basically said, basically I'm known as potentially an alternative to Saka if you ever need to rest him because of my ability to dribble and carry and run at players. We saw that against Bournemouth. But slot me in the Odegaard position and I'm going to thrive there. Oh, you want Odegaard on the pitch at the same time? Well, cool. Move me to left 8 and I'll get an assist for Jesus against Man United and I'll stay onside in the process and pick the right spots and link the play up. He was great and build up. There was so much I loved about him. Salahadin, who turns 21 in, I think, 15 days. You're thinking, well, we should know more about him by now, no? But he didn't look at all off the rhythm rhythm is the word that the other players had in midfield. No, we weren't at our best, but those little connections between a Jorginho and Odegaard, a Partey and an Odegaard, whoever it might be, Saladin was a part of it, man. He was absolutely a part of it. And I think all of them can absolutely take so much pride in what they did across the tour. And I think that's why when I say I had this question about completing the Arsenal squad, I think part of it being complete is having those youngsters that you've got that group that you're going to rely on, but you've got those youngsters you're happy to play. You've got those youngsters you can play. You're not expecting to play every game, but they might surprise you. They might give you something different. They might just, I know Man City over the years haven't, blooded through loads of youngsters, but you've had a Phil Foden. Okay, he seems obviously a very unique talent, but he's still got a Rico Lewis, Oscar Bob coming on against, Newcastle and scoring the winner. Like, just to have that quality you can call upon and then know what's coming, for me, is all part of building the foundations for this club. So really, really big up to them. I think they could be a big part of what this squad looks like next season.
Completely. The only thing I would say, I completely agree that you do want them in your squad and you do I think your words were happy to play them. You do want to be happy to play them.
Yeah.
But you cannot be reliant upon them to win you the games that aren't going your way, right? And that's the difference. So for anyone who sat there thinking, man, Ranieri, one of the best ball carriers I've seen at that age, fantastic. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're 1-0 down and you go, right, Ethan, this is on you, right? That difference maker, I think, still has to come from the existing first team squad and perhaps a frontline signing that we'll come to. But for sure, you want to blood these players in. And I think I read today that at least him and Lewis Skelly have continued training with our first team squad. A few went back to play with the under-21s or whatever, but those two have stayed. And that's definitely indicative of not only their performances being rewarded, but the fact that they may well be involved going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, there were some rumours. People had an image of Nwaneri in the warm-up, and it looked like he had the number 10 on his shorts. Now, that would be... Listen, when there's 3 numbers, sometimes they just pick up that kit, I think. I've seen that before, so I don't think we should all be getting too excited. But if something were to be announced that Nwaneri had been given the number 10 shirt, that would be as big a show of fate than a player. Like, there's almost no point even debating whether he's going to play a part in the team. You may as well expect him to be starting some games.
I know, but do you think that the numbering thing has been devalued a bit, though? With Smith Rowe getting the 10 and Eddie getting the 14, I understand that at that point there was very much a message of, no, this is the boy becoming a man in Smith Rowe, and this is the real show of faith in Eddie with the contract. But there is an element of just because you've got the number 10 doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be playing in the 10 or regularly. That's the thing, right? But I mean, look, he could. What we used to say about Smith Rowe was one, and what Carey used to say is one of the best ball carriers in the team, and that is an attribute that Nwaneri has in abundance.
But I do think Smith Rowe was 21 maybe when he
a lot more.
Played some football. 17 would just be an extraordinary age. For what it's worth, everyone, I think he was just wearing the shorts. I don't think he's going to get the number 10 shirt. By the way, it's such a blurry picture. It might not have been the number 10. But I do think the way Arteta was very keen to give him minutes with Odegaard in the Bournemouth game, minutes with Odegaard in the Man United game, starting alongside Jorginho. That's all deliberate. You got to think, right, with pre-season, everyone says, well, it doesn't matter. Like Arteta said to Bavs himself, he said, we played Havertz in midfield because of numbers, right? And the players you have available, he's going to be a 9. Now, Arteta lies all the time, so you never know. But But there are certain things that are absolutely deliberate. And it's just not just a case of, well, the numbers dictate we have to do this. For example, Nwaneri playing right 8, 10, the Odegaard role, and Vieira all the way out the touchline on the right against, well, Bournemouth and against Man United. But in the Bournemouth game, they started together. Why would you not flip that?
I know.
Like why would Vieira not, who is probably the closest thing we have in terms of profile to Odegaard, why would he not play in that position to try to get some confidence going, to get him playing where he's comfortable in central areas, and get the youngster playing out on the right where he can, get a bit of experience and learn his trade a little bit, tracking back, do the hard work, learn what it's like. Why wouldn't you do it that way? Unless your theory is, because I need to see that he's ready for the middle, because if he is, I'm using him.
Yeah, or you feel as though you already know that Vieira is probably pretty decent centrally, so you want to see if he can. You want to see if he can accommodate a different position. And
do Arsenal fans think that?
They don't, and I don't think Vieira playing on the right is doing him any favors either, because he needs to alter the perception of certain sections of this fan base, and for him to have to do that from a position that isn't his favorite position, it's not going to do him any good. It's not going to do his confidence any good. I mean, sadly, even though he's the one that scores the goal in the first game, pretty good volley. I know it takes a nick, but it's a pretty good volley. He hasn't really come out of that preseason tour with a lot of people going, oh, this might be his season. And we were discussing him and Jesus in depth before they went, and said these are two players that really need to go on and kick on in this preseason to have the faith of the Arsenal fan base that they can actually alter the trajectory of the season for us. And I think there's still work to do, man.
Yeah, I totally agree. But that's just where I think the Nwaneri thing was interesting. In terms of the minutes he was given and the particular minutes in particular roles. I think the assist he got for Jesus is straight out of the Arteta playbook, and it's something that Mikel would have been so happy with, to see his advanced 8 picking up the ball through a forward pass. Originally, from the view I had, I thought it was a bit of an underlap, but it wasn't. But even so, it's that movement into that space to then lash it across goal for Jesus. And I think Arteta's been looking for his guy to do that.
And for Jesus to actually be there on the end of it, right? Jesus isn't knocking about at the end of the box. He's actually in the position where you would want him to be. So if that's a sign of things to come, and if someone has taken him aside and had a word with him and said, listen, I know that you can spin 3 or 4 man when you're picking up the ball on the halfway line. Stop. We need you to get goals now. You're going to play down the middle. You said you wanted to be the 9. Occupy those positions and trust those around you to do their job. If that is the message that has been drilled into Jesus and he listens, he could have a very different season too.
Yeah, I totally agree. And where I keep talking about this squad nearing completion, right? So the noise is that Kivior isn't actually going anywhere unless there's a kind of a big, I don't know, 25 to 30 million pound offer. I think you can see with the way Arsenal are negotiating on this Eddie Nketiah front, they're not looking to just let these players go to get rid of them. I think they're actually using this as the summer where they go, no, we want value. Tavares Lokonga is one thing, but these guys, we want value for them. So when I look at a squad of, and I'm just going to fly through it in my mind, maybe we'll edit this onto the screen in the podcast, but, White, Timber, Tomiyasu Saliba, Gabriel Kivior, Calafiori Zinchenko, and you could throw in a Lewis Skelly maybe, right? So you got 9 players, but call it 8 first teamers, 8 senior players. Incredibly complete. Then you move along the midfield. Let's go right to the left, from Vieira to Odegaard. Nwaneri can play there too. Partey, Jorginho, Rice, maybe a Marino. But the fact you now got Nwaneri in there is that 7th. You've got your 6, your Rice and Marino at 8, but they might play together. But Jorginho and Partey can come in, and then Odegaard and Vieira. But now Nwaneri's just that extra little something else. He's that left 8 expert maybe, and I don't want to hype too much pressure.
You've also almost got it in age hierarchy. You have the 2 30 plus midfielders. You've got the ones who are sort of mid-20s who are experienced enough, and then you've got the young man learning, right? That is, I mean, I know it's a really rudimentary way of saying it, but that is the conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And you want that to keep ticking. So that is the right way to go about it.
Yeah, exactly that. That's exactly what I was trying to word earlier, and you said it perfectly. It's like that almost hierarchy to exist a little bit. Phil Foden was developing at a point where David Silva, Bernardo Silva, and De Bruyne were there, and you got that, and then it's just the forward line. And so I keep seeing that. This is, we're going to move on to the transfer stuff, because I want your opinion on Calafiori, Smith Rowe, Marino, all that. But it's why I feel like Arteta is, and I want to specify this very clearly, he's the right forward signing, as in the correct one. If he gets it right, I start to wonder what this squad even lacks at this point.
Yeah.
I would think it's complete. Is it better than City's? Then you're talking about player quality. But in terms of profiles, variation in kind of experience to youth, to perfect age, to prime, to all that stuff, and the different options we've got in terms of roles to play, the different tactics we can deliver on, I'd say it's complete with that right forward signing.
Go back to what we were saying at the beginning of the window. All right.
Yeah.
You're looking at how to complete the squad. If we're talking goalkeeper, I think even though we thought that there were certain question marks over, I think the fan base is generally like, that's absolutely fine. Eventually sort of indicated to bring him in, let him be there. We knew the centre-back pairing was incredible. We also knew we kind of got away with one. Arteta has, after the event, confessed that he knows we got away with one because they were fit. Timber's come back in, Calafiori's there. Ben White's well-versed in that position, and ultimately fullbacks like Tomiyasu and White play centre-back. So we're stacked, yeah? Fullback position, we now know that Timber's back and can play, Calafiori can play, fantastic. But it was always the left-hand side that we thought might need addressing. If we were going to address defensively, it was going to be left-hand side. We've done that. I think everyone's happy with the back line. You're now looking at the midfield. I was worried that Partey was going to go. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. I know that people wanted the marquee midfielder. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. It looks like it may well just be Merino. Okay, but we were just discussing the midfield. And in terms of player profile, age profile, and just numbers in midfield, solid. Mm-hmm. And we would have said that at the beginning of the season. If we retain Partey and bring in an internationally proven midfielder like Merino, okay. But what did we also all say at the beginning of the window? Front line. Someone, as I said on the last pod, not someone who's going to add 30 a season. That's not necessarily what we need. But if you're looking at the games where we create a lot and we don't have the absolute fear factor killers to put the ball in the back of the net, one shot, one kill, that's what we want. And that's what we need. Because the minute you have that, if it is someone that's down the middle, cover for Saka is something that everyone wants to address. Gabriel Jesus did that for a title-winning Manchester City side and is quite good on that flank. He can do that. Mm-hmm. Trossard was clutch last year, and that was really, he only got those opportunities to be clutch, which he also did in the Champions League, because Martinelli was slightly off it. Now, I'm not saying Martinelli's going to be right back to his best, but he looked good in pre-season. He looked bright. He looked sharp. If we're talking about maybe moving a Jesus out to the right as cover for Saka, if we're talking about Martinelli and Trossard fighting out on the left, if we're talking about maybe an Nketiah going, it is really only Kai Havertz that's playing up top, maybe in rotation with Jesus. It was the obvious position at the beginning of the window. It's the obvious position now. We've addressed other areas. We're sort of bringing in youth that are encouraging. Finish the job.
So you think that 9 completes it?
And if it's not going to be the 9, then it has to be. There aren't that many, right? But you can look at the players like Salah. They get the numbers that you'd expect of a 9, but they get it from the wing. So you want the fear factor winger. This is a really, really base level way of me saying it, yeah? But I'm big on fantasy football. Big on fantasy football. And I can look at City and I know I want Haaland in my team. True. I can look at Liverpool and go, I want Salah in my team. I can look at Villa and go, I want Watkins in my team. I can look at Newcastle and go, I want Isak in my team. I used to be able to look at Tottenham and say, I want Kane in my team. When it comes to Arsenal, it's, should I put Saka in? But he's 8.5 mil on FPL. Maybe Odegaard. Maybe Odegaard's numbers will be a bit better. Maybe it might be Martinelli. Like there's a few where you're like, yeah, cool, they could do a job, but it's not that's the person. That's the fear factor person. That's the guy that you want in your team, right? And I know that people say they aren't around, but memories are short, man. It wasn't that long ago that people were talking about Osimhen like he was the next striker that everyone had to get. And he has one season where he's slightly off the ball and suddenly everyone's like, nah, bin him off. I don't know. Arteta improves players, firstly. And it's not like this guy's 35 years old. There's a lot that can be done with a player like that.
Yeah, and I thought I was having a good debate, mainly with Turkish on for Arsenal. Obviously, we're all sort of discussing it, and I was saying, look, it's roll the dice time. It's the 5th of August, so there's less than a month left of the transfer window. So you've had, all of June, all of July, maybe a little bit of May, but we know things have been happening, tournaments or whatever. And I think we've all been very patient as a fan base. I think we've all been quite trusting. Okay, we know the track record. Let's just wait and see what happens. But I think we're now at roll the dice time, where I am at the point where on deadline day, if we haven't signed a forward, I'm saying, yes, bring Tony in for 40 million. because it might just win us a few extra other points. And I'm at that point where Alex from Different Knock, he put it perfectly. Like, he was having a similar debate with people, and he was like, well, are we saying we don't want to improve at all because we can't improve perfectly? And so I'm in this position where I don't think, for example, adding Tony completes the squad. Oh, there we go. Arteta's got everything he could possibly want. But if Gyökeres is the guy, like if that's the guy he wants, and it turns out Sporting will do a deal at 55, 60 million, and we add him, or Osimhen we get for 60 million and we add him, or Nico Williams, who people are reporting is the guy Arteta really wants, and we add him, then I'm just at a point where I'm going, Mikel, like, fair play to you. You're a victim of your own transfer window success here, because now I'm expecting huge things, because I do think Calafiori improves us at left back, or certainly in terms of depth, we can't complain in that area. I think Marino, because of his pure profile, is going to help Rice in build up, is going to help Jorginho in terms of physicality, and is going to help Partey in terms of like not allowing him to be kind of overexposed as well, you know, and the weaknesses we've seen in his game recently. So he complements every six we have perfectly. He allows Rice to play basically whatever position we need him to, because he's brilliant. So it's just that one forward. And I'm okay with not getting the, you know, the, what's the word? The kind of superstar marquee, that's the word, the marquee midfield signing. If we get that right forward, with every day that ticks by, it feels less likely. But it's what I mean when I say we're so close. Like, for me, you add that one player, and I'm like, this is assuming Marino comes through. And listen, I'm having big expectations for Arsenal this season. I am.
Good, no, completely. This brings me back to a conversation I had. I think it was on the Supporters Club years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when we were linked to Vlahovic. And we were all sat there saying, all right, fine, but if you're not going to get him, I mean, you have clearly indicated that you do need a striker. And this was the point where he sort of dumped Aubameyang and didn't really have much faith in Lacazette. But he didn't bring in another striker that window. And look what happened. You know, we missed out on top four that year, and goals did become a problem. And I think he learned from that, because then you look at sagas like the Mudryk saga, but they immediately did have a plan B, and it wasn't necessarily the player they identified as the perfect marquee signing, but they found someone that was effective. And that person who was effective got us closer. So, I mean, I completely agree, but it is pure speculation that if it's not the right person, then we're not trying. I do think that we're being dicks sometimes, and there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and there are a lot more conversations being had about players that we have spoken about, and maybe some players that we haven't. There's just there is just so much going on with this sort of thing, and I think Arteta knows that we're not too far away, and that we do need something different in that sense. I don't know if you watched. It was an interesting sort of lens or insight into the recruitment thing. It was Edu on, I think it's the Men in Blazers podcast. It was only 25 minutes. But he was asked squarely, look, what is your recruitment policy? Because you transformed it. And he said, look, when I came into the club, without being too condescending about the players that were there, because I have a lot of respect for them, but they were all like over 28. They were all underperforming, and they were all getting paid loads of money.
Yeah.
And that was an omni shambles. And that's why no one wanted to buy them. So he said, the things that I look at are the right age profile, the right performance level, and the right wages. And he says, if the wages are high and they're old, I'm not too fussed as long as the performance level is there and the wages are sort of not, you're taking the piss wages, right? So you can look at someone like a Tony. I don't think Tony's going to be demanding $250,000 a week, and I think he knows he can't command that. I don't think Brentford are going to be demanding an 85 million fee anymore. That seems to have dropped off. Even Osimhen, I'd be very surprised if, given where he's playing, I'd be very surprised if his wage demands are, I want $500,000 a week. Yeah, you know, and things can be done. And when you're talking about the sign-on fee, okay, Smith Rowe has already gone for a decent fee. It looks like, unless we've completely fluffed that deal, it looks like we will get half decent money for Eddie. And then for me, it's just a question of what can we do with Reece? Because as much as I love him every preseason, it's not my first rodeo, mate. Like I've been here before with Reece. You know, at the risk of sounding quite blunt, this is what Reece does. He looks sharp. He beats the man. There's not much end product. You think you can get more out of him, but the years go by, and whether it's through the lack of minutes or otherwise, it doesn't necessarily happen. So I'm looking at a bit of money for him too. That covers the Osimhen signing fee. That absolutely covers it. And quite frankly, if you're talking about Eddie on $100,000 a week, whatever Smith Rowe is on and whatever Reece is on, you're probably looking at Osimhen's wages as well, man. You know, so I actually cover it.
Yeah. I think you're right, to be honest. And I think I think Arsenal are trying to get these players out before they go big on what comes in. Because I think we all like to think that, the real world is like Football Manager, where you can just tweak the database and the settings and give yourself...
Not anymore. Brilliant. Not anymore. Every club's doing it. Every club has to sell now. Look at the window. I mean, what has actually happened?
Well, very little. And this is why I think if Arsenal wanted to, by the end of the week, announce a forward signing, they could do it. I think if they wanted to announce a good forward signing that is pretty good, they could do that by the end of the window. I think it's more they're going, well, we could get this guy for 40 million tomorrow. But what if we do get that 15 million for Reece? Suddenly we do have 55 million to go on this guy. What if we get 25, 30 for Eddie? Suddenly, maybe there's an 80 million pound signing we can make. Now, again, it doesn't quite work as simply as that. But in whatever context, money coming in means you can have more go out. So I think Arsenal are trying to wait to see what happens, especially with these Reece and Eddie deals. For anyone wondering where we are with that, I mean, Reece Nelson's still in talks with Leicester, but it's really quieting down. He won't go to West Ham now because Somerville's gone there. And Marseille are signing Moukoko, which kind of leaves it up in the air where they're going to come in with a third bid after 25 million was rejected by Arsenal. For what it's worth, I think that would have been a good deal for us. Yeah. So I'm really interested to see how that all plays out. But to answer my kind of big question of the podcast, how do we complete this Arsenal squad? If you had your Keres, and I don't know Osimhen, let's go Osimhen, because they're probably going to be similar prices, and he's got a better reputation, I'd say, Osimhen. So you add Osimhen, and your options are Saka, Jesus, Osimhen, Havertz, Trossard, Martinelli, and we're already scoring 88 and 91 goals in the last 2 seasons, and we've added Calafiori to the back four, and we've added balance to midfield. My expectations, and for everyone, because I know now some people get annoyed by this, I will never ever say my demand is we win the Premier League, and if you don't, you failed, because I just don't think you can ignore the context of Haaland and De Bruyne and Pep Guardiola and what they've done and experience and all that. But I do think I'll be sitting there going, pretty much no trophy would be a failure, pretty much not looking seriously competitive in the Champions League would be a failure. But isn't that the pressure Arteta wants? Like, that's what Arteta, he wants to get his squad in a place where he can deliver that. And no one's putting the pressure on more than himself, I imagine.
Absolutely, man. And one of the biggest regrets that anyone ever has, not just in football but in life, man, is you look back at something that you were really close to and you go, I know I could have just done a bit more and tried a little bit harder. And it's not a question of the players that we have trying a bit harder. It's not a question of the manager that we have working a bit harder. I mean, the guy looks like he's not sleeping. He's clearly an absolute fanatic and he's obsessed with this. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he's kind of got like stats or whatever he listens to sort of on his bedside table when he sleeps. Like, he's probably just listening to that to knock out. It's really unhealthy, but that's the way he lives. He's obsessed, right? It's not that he doesn't care enough, but when it comes to just now throwing the kitchen sink at it, especially because we're not talking about 6 or 7 players anymore, it's the one relatively obvious piece of the jigsaw that we all have needed to address for so long. I mean, if we're talking about wanting to bring in someone like Vlahovic a while ago and having basically turfed out the starting strikers from that point onwards and having not brought in a proper central striker since then, it has to be done at some point. And there's only so long you can sit there and say, well, there aren't many of them out there. I mean, you have to, I know that people do want to avoid interrupting the chemistry in the dressing room and the cohesion and so forth, but sometimes you've got to play the hand you're dealt and just make the best out of the situation that's in front of you.
What's the name for you? Because I said Osimhen there because I think it's the one that will resonate with most people as like a mega money signing that you can add to this team and people will be excited about. I think Isak obviously is really not signable, I think.
Well, did you read why? I don't know if this was true. Did you read that stuff about Newcastle? This is really interesting.
No.
Yeah, apparently we contacted Newcastle with interest and they said, you as Arsenal Football Club are one of the main reasons as to why the FA are clamping down on state-owned clubs, and you're the ones that have been driving that. And that aligns with what I had heard in terms of Man City, even though they're not technically, state-owned in that sense. I mean, I understand, but it's interesting that they've said you're actually causing a hindrance to our model at the moment, so we don't want to do business with you. It was almost a spite, sort of piss off you're trying to shaft us elsewhere. You're not taking our player.
Who said that? I haven't seen this report.
I saw that online. I'll send you the link. I should have come with the source. I didn't think we were going to deal with it today, but I've seen it posted a fair bit that we reached out and they said, no, you're actually the ones that are liaising with the FA and trying to clamp down on state-owned clubs. We're not doing business with you. Wow. So that was an interesting angle, and that kind of put the Isak dream to bed for me, because for me, he was the one. Can I be honest with you, man? I know that I'm on a football podcast and I know that I should watch every football match that's ever played in every league at all hours, but I don't. I've seen Osimhen and Gyökeres in the same games that most people have, right? I've seen them in the European ties. I watch the odd game here and there, but I don't watch them the same way that I watch Premier League strikers. No. And on their day, they both look fantastic. But from what I've seen, I think in terms of the profile that might slot into our team the easiest, I think it might be Gyökeres out of the two.
I was going to say the same.
I think it might be, but again, that's just me. That's just me, sort of, an educated guess. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be adversely opposed to either. But I think it might be. Yeah.
There's something about Gyökeres. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Let me know in the comments below. There's something about him. I can't explain it. Like, I've seen about as much of him as I have of Osimhen. With both, I haven't seen anywhere near enough of either. But something tells me that Gyökeres is like made to fire in this Arsenal team. I don't know if it's a build he has. I don't know if it's I want to say ruthlessness, but Osimhen has that in front of goal. Mm. There's something I really like about him. And I'm interested to see whether that is a move Arsenal try. The problem is that recent reports are saying Sporting won't budge from 100 million euros. So unlikely. But it's like I keep saying, all right, so if we go into next season with Havertz, Trossard and Jesus as our nines, Firmino led the line for Liverpool in the league. I don't think we need an out-and-out goal scorer up front. City.
He was magnificent at that, and he had a Mo Salah and a Sadio Mane. That's the thing.
So my question is, who's then, like, is Nico Williams really that guy? Can Leroy Sané? If we get Leroy Sané playing to the level he played, for Man City, under Pep Guardiola, if Arteta can get that back out of him, he's only 28, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility. That is the player I want over any other striker, bar maybe Isak. Like, that version of Sané.
But have you seen him replicate that level at Bayern?
No.
That's my only worry.
Saviour Mikel.
I know that's the sort of counter argument, isn't it? Arteta's fantastic with wingers. He did a lot of work with Sané. He's the one that can sort of rejuvenate this guy. But there is a part of me that sort of, I don't know whether it's just me being idealistic. I kind of want the slightly. This goes against everything that I usually say about sort of proven experience, but I do want the ever so slight unknown, with that level of excitement and the notion that this person can also slot in and grow with the team at a similar age profile, but also be good enough to warrant starting in this team. I know that I've just dropped about 4 oxymorons in there, but the idea that you can have a long-term project with a player, particularly when there aren't that many around right now in particular positions, that is somewhat appealing to me as well, right? And I think that's why I kind of like the Gyökeres signing as well, because he is someone that I think we could get the best in his career at Arsenal, as opposed to trying to sort of rejuvenate and revitalize someone that was quite good a few years ago.
The Gyökeres trajectory reminds me a little of Diego Costa's. I remember Diego Costa, he'd actually been in the Atletico Madrid squad a little while. I don't know if he'd gone out on loan. I don't really know too much before, but I remember one summer, I think when we moved for Luis Suarez, maybe, I think it might have been then.
You want to call that moving for Luis Suarez, do you? What we did?
We'll let them have it. Yeah. And I think Liverpool were trying to sign Diego Costa whether we got Suarez or not, but certainly not. And Atletico Madrid held on to him, and the year after, having absolutely banged for Atletico, Chelsea picked him up. And I wonder with Gyökeres whether, like, that 1 year that he kind of was the starting striker for a big club in Europe, as Diego Costa was, and Atletico Madrid, I think they won the league, they had a tremendous season. Then he got that kind of move quite quickly. That might not be a fair trajectory comparison, but let me know in the comment section if you guys see what I mean. Because again, I think Diego Costa was about 25, 26 when he actually got the move to Chelsea. I think he wasn't, as far as I'm, but do you know what? While you're answering my next question, I'm actually going to Google that and double check. I'm pretty sure he wasn't that young. But let me ask you now, I think we've more than covered the whole, what does this kind of squad need? Are we kind of close to completion? And it certainly feels like in terms of the roles and the versatility in the squad, and the depth of it, like we're certainly getting there, especially with Timber returning. I want to know your thoughts on Calafiori in, Smith Rowe out, and also where it's left us, going into 2 games at the Emirates this week, because next time we chat will be after Lyon and Leverkusen. So, yeah, kind of give me your thoughts on everything in terms of where we are while I rudely Google Diego Costa's age.
Calafiori is exciting, man, especially because of the stuff that I heard from him after he joined. You start, because things start coming out, right? So you hear about the clubs that were in for him. You hear about the money he could have got elsewhere. You hear about the fact that, and it's not that isn't fake. When there's a camera and he's looking at Mikel going, brother, is this real? Those are the sorts of things you want to see from a player. And then inevitably when he joins, you start
25. I knew.
Hang on. He looked a lot older than that.
5-year-old is 32.
He looked older than me when he joined. He looked old. Yeah. Hang on.
Carry on.
But you start looking at it again, and I always thought that we were looking to address that position because we were defensively vulnerable there. I'm thinking about long ball, diagonal to Salah, Zinchenko getting skinned up. Sadly, it's Zinni twice against Villa as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think Fulham, it's Kivior back post, even though that was slightly more of a centre-back position. He was the one on the left that day. I just thought we wanted to shore up defensively because we conceded goals that ultimately led to dropping points last year. But the more I analyse what I can see in the public domain about Calafiori, the more I realise that he does influence the attack a fair bit, whether it's from, in fact, predominantly from centre-back. He does sort of have that level of that marauding run. And I think he got 5 assists last season from centre-back, which isn't a bad return. Which isn't a bad return. So that was exciting, man. And I don't want to go on about Smith Rowe too much because I watch Forever Arsenal and I'm not trying to get slapped up by Jordan for having a pity party for Smith Rowe. But the way that I describe it is, when you've got that one top that you really love, but it's been in your wardrobe for ages and it just doesn't fit you anymore.
Yeah.
And you always say you're going to wear it, but you never really do, man. And it's just sitting in there. But you know that if you go on eBay or you take it to a thrift shop, you might get like 100 quid for it. The day comes where you just go and get that 100 quid, and you either start wearing the stuff that you already have a bit more, or you buy a new top. We outgrew Emile Smith Rowe, sadly. And Fulham. Don't get me wrong. I'm not cussing Fulham out. Fulham is a prestigious club, and I really hope it works out for him. But I know that everyone's saying it's like, oh, this is a great move for him. It's the perfect. I don't know, man. Let's see.
I'm with you.
Let's see if it is. Let's see if it is, because they're looking to bolster that midfield anyway. I'm not entirely sure where they intend on playing him. I think they're going to bring in a McTominay, but it does seem like he's going to walk into that team. Let's just see how he slots in, man. Because to be honest, it's been a while since I've seen him for like 6 or 7 games in a row. I'm going to be watching it curiously. No. Fulham fans are coming up to me going, yo, what do I expect with Emile? I'm like, bro, I can't tell you right now. I can tell you what you can hope for, but I can't tell you what to expect from him.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. I'm not sure the Fulham move is definitely a great move. I think it probably is. I like Marco Silva. I like the football they've played in the last few years. Listen, they've stifled us in the last 2 games. Had we been better against Fulham in this last season, we'd have won the league. So don't get me wrong. I don't disrespect Fulham in any way. I'm just not 100% sure it's the right fit. But I wish him all the best. Leverkusen and Lyon, just very quickly, my thoughts on it. I expect Arsenal to now start to get their first 11 as much as possible out there. If Havertz plays another 2 games in midfield, I'm not believing what he said to Babs anymore. Well, with the numbers, I'm thinking, you haven't let go of this midfield experiment, have you? Like this plan you had all along. You're not quite convinced it's dead like the rest of us. So I need to be seeing our first 11 looking more. If Vieira's going to play, I don't want to see him out on the right. Get him some minutes where he's best. Otherwise, I expect those minutes to go to Jesus on the right in Saka's absence. With Havertz up top, I want to see something that resembles more what we ended last season with.
What's your 11? What's your 11 for Leverkusen?
Assuming we don't have the players back. I know they're back in training. Saka, Rice, Ramsdale, Raya. Hein, because I don't think Ryan Ramsdale will be ready to start, but I expect them to get some minutes against Lyon. I mean, they didn't exactly play a lot of the Euros, did they? White, Timber, Gabriel, Calafiori.
Okay.
Ødegaard.
That's an exciting back four.
Yeah. Ødegaard, Partey, Nwaneri.
Nice. Yeah.
Jesus, Havertz, Martinelli.
Okay.
What a team. It's a good team, that.
Yeah, man, if it works, it works. You know what I mean? If it works, it works. But again, what is the area of that pitch where you're looking at and you're going, well, this isn't us sort of bringing in a kid. These are actually all starters, but I'm still not entirely sure. It's that front three.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very interested to see what Arteta does. I mean, like I said, if he's sort of going, well, I'll start Jesus up top, I'll play Nelson on the right, we'll get Havertz back in midfield. I'm thinking you've got three players who basically are playing positions that they probably won't play for most of the season. Nelson, who's probably on his way. So like there's certain things I want to see for sure. And a lot of it is like something that feels like what we're going to see throughout the season a lot more.
I think he's actually I think he's catered this pre-season to the transfer market and the fact that the tournament ended quite late. I mean, the pre-season where it was quite, I wouldn't say easy, but it was slightly more realistic for us to get the signings in early. You did see teams that sort of resembled what we wanted, and they were ultra competitive because he had the players, and he didn't have to necessarily try and train others up or try and get people up to fitness and get people resting so he could get them back up to fitness. But I think the club and other clubs knew that it was going to be difficult to get players. We said it when we started this pod. This is going to be a strange window because of the tournament and the proximity. So I'm completely happy with the rate at which we're recruiting, to be honest with you, particularly in comparison to what is going on elsewhere in the Premier League in Europe. And I think that has a bearing upon the 11s that we're seeing. I know everyone could say we could have been quicker, but as long as we get it done before the end of the window, which isn't that far away now, we're okay. We're okay.
I've been saying that, and again on Forever Arsenal, I think they all disagreed with me, but I said at the moment my feeling is a 6/7 out of 10. I feel pretty fine about the window. You know, we're happy with the money we got Smith Rowe, happy with Calafiori, Marino looks like he's coming. You know, the development of the youngsters, I'm feeling very good about where the squad is. But I'm like, if we don't get that forward, then my opinion of it like almost collapses. I'm like, that's a 2 out of 10. You've added a player in an area we're really strong, and you haven't inspired me in midfield massively. But like that forward makes a big difference. So yeah, a big couple of weeks for us. Obviously, with the Premier League starting next weekend, which is crazy. Next time we speak on a podcast will be the week of the start of the Premier League, which is great. Maybe we'll do it later, build up, which is kind of crazy to think about. Leverkusen, Lyon, I'm just expecting us to look competitive, to look like the rhythm's there. I need chance creation to go up a little bit. I need us to look a little bit like we're asking more questions of the opposition keeper. I don't think we did enough of that in pre-season, though we look quite sharp in possession. And I want to see, you know, if Havertz going to play, I want to see those minutes up top. If Jesus going to play, I want to see those, you know, minutes out wide as well. Can they play?
To be better defensively too, you know. We weren't that great.
No.
We weren't that great.
Most of tour, to be fair. But we've also played some very strange partnerships, so I'm not going to read into it too much. I'd go as far as to say, like, we were in like our 7th/8th options of partnerships. Like, you know, where it will be Saliba, Gabriel, then it's White and Gabriel, then it's White and Saliba, then it's Timber and Gabriel. Like, we were so far down the list in terms of.
But if it's the back four that you listed, I'd hope that looks a lot more solid, because on paper that could very easily be a Premier League.
I'm expecting it to look brilliant, but
that is very easily a Premier League starting back four for us. You know,
I think that's a title-winning back four if they play to the potential that these players supposedly have, the reputation Timber has, Calafiori. So let's see, and of course Saliba to come back. I don't think the England boys and Raya are going to get any minutes in these friendlies, but you never know. Maybe if they're on the bench for Lyon, they can sort of get a little 20-minute run out and hopefully be ready to start the season. But we're gonna round it off there. Who knew that just the two of us could rattle on for about 15 minutes? We don't need guests after all. But that's what happens when you miss a week. There's plenty to catch up on, of course. But Sharoy, mate, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. We're going to catch up after the two friendlies and in the run up to the Premier League actually kicking off. And I know that you're putting some real work into something very exciting. So tell everyone about it.
Yeah, I'm trying, man. I'm 12th of August. If all goes well and I can figure out how to record and upload onto YouTube, my channel will finally go live. So thank you for everyone who's subscribed. Thank you for James for all the random answers you're giving me on WhatsApp as to how to use StreamYard and stuff. Big up Max as well, because Max has been doing some quality creation for me. The guy's a genius, man. Like some of the stuff that he uses, oh man, like I worked on this a few weeks ago and I just didn't know what product to use it for. Take a look at this. And I was like, that is incredible.
How have you got that?
Yeah.
he's great. You should all know a little bit about Max, right? Not only is he incredibly devoted and brilliant and talented, but he's also a bit like us, which is he oh god, I'm about to make myself sound very arrogant. So let me not talk about me. Let me just talk about him. he loves to learn. I was about to say we're all like that, but I'm not always like that. He loves to learn. So he messaged me one day going, man, like, look what I did with the logo. And he sort of 3D'd the Goonerverse logo. And I was like, wow, like, this is incredible. What are you using this for? He went, no, nothing. I just wanted to know we could do it. And I was like,
what a don. What a don.
Legend, man. There you go. So, yeah, big up to him. And I'm so glad he's working with you as well. Everyone go show some love for Max in the comments. We're going to round it off there. This is available on all podcast platforms, but you know what? The outro tells you that. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to just see you all later. Thank you, Sharoy. Catch you in a bit. Really hope you've enjoyed another episode of the Goonerverse Podcast with Arsenal fans from around the Arsenal world giving their amazing thoughts. A big thanks to our guest today. If you do want to follow this podcast on the go, you can. It's available on podcast platforms as well. Join us next week where we'll get more Arsenal fans to talk all things Arsenal. A big thank you again.